here will be up there momentarily. So in any case, however you're tuning in, however works for you to be able to tune in, see the show, see and contribute to the things, or hear, I guess, for the most part, the things that we're talking about that you want to contribute to, etc. This is the place to do so, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And yep, it's definitely another big week. Among other things, it is the start of early voting. And yes, I already went out and cast my ballot today over at Sunland Park Mall as I was perusing through some things over there. So easy enough to find the places in here. I'm going to always recommend epcountyvotes.com to be the place that you can go to find out your nearest voting location. Though, if you were at all confused in the midst of the, okay, how many mailers do I have here in front of me that have shown up for me or people that I know that were like, hey, are you more interested in this than I am? I've got at least 3 Prop K mailers, or I most specifically say anti-Prop K mailers that showed up for me, and smattering of different, primarily, I mean, school boards, the other one that I vote on, different school boards candidates, flyers, actually, the ones like door handle knockers, so they're apparently coming by. So a lot of that going on, and I'm positive that will continue through May 6th as we get closer to election day. But I mean, some of the Prop K mailers specifically also have handy dandly, and I mean, okay, they already know my address, obviously, since they're sending it to me in the mail, but just that, oh, these are the closest early voting locations to you, I find both helpful, if unnecessary, because I know where to go, but also just a little bit like, hey, we know exactly where you live. So I don't know why it makes that much of a difference to me, but that kind of information floating out there, be sure to find it again, epcountyvotes.com, as we're going to delve a little bit further. Well, now that we've already dealt pretty far, but just talking even more about some of the other things on there, the other propositions, the other actual items that are on this ballot. Again, it's a pretty well stacked one. Rick Ray is asking what was the waiting time. I walked straight in. There was I mean, I wasn't totally alone in there either. There was a couple people ahead of me and a couple people that came in behind me. So I'm not going to call it an overwhelming flow, and this was like, yeah, let's call it midday, give or take. I didn't clock the exact time that I was there. But let me just say that if you want to vote, voting early is the way I always prefer to do so, because there's usually little to no wait. I know Rowetta is saying, yeah, no waiting at the West Side YWCA. So the one off Bartlett, that was the other one I was considering going to, because that's also my neck of the woods. But yeah, I just basically decided to, well, I was already at Sunland Park Mall. I was like, oh, hey, yeah, there's voting down there. So yeah, I definitely made my way. So I would encourage everyone to make your plan to go vote. Flacco Jimenez saying that he voted. Congrats. And you know what? Let's drag out something that we haven't done in a minute as a congrats for voting. There we go. Dragging out the bell only for voting season. It's been a minute. So, yeah, if you do that, I do appreciate it. Anytime someone votes, ring the bell, an angel, and hopefully a voter, or maybe not, gets its wings. Maybe let's not crosses associations. So that's, of course, one of the things going on, and we'll be tracking as much as possible the voter turnout so far this week, as we are hopefully in a lot of happiness over there being the bell being brought back. Oh, it's the simple things, isn't it, in life sometimes? So we'll be tracking, of course, some of the turnout from that and some of the other major things going on here, including other elections that are being talked about, other the propositions, because, yes, Prop K, it's not even just all the oxygen in the room. It's actively removing oxygen from the rest of the room here. It's more like, one of those any sci-fi movie that involves the vacuum of space, it gets kind of getting sucked out. That's the way it feels like in terms of the political conversation. How you feel about the item itself is a different issue entirely, but there are other things. Richard Genesik also saying no wait at another West Side location, voted in less than 5 minutes. I mean, if you know what's on the ballot, particularly if you've looked up who if you got school board on the ballot, though of course there's still some frustration, had at least one listener chime in with us, Larry, who lives out in the Fabens area, sending me a note earlier this morning saying that not all Paso County residents are able to vote in this current election. Was told he had no ballot available, resident of Fabens, but knew that he didn't have any school board votes, but was disappointed to learn that he was not able to vote on Proposition K or any of the other ones. And I don't like it, but that is the truth, that this being a City of El Paso item, only those residents of the city of El Paso are able to vote on this. We've had some of that frustration being vented from across state lines already. Yes, I'm thinking about Frankie and his calls on this matter. And so I recommended to him much what Frankie has suggested for himself, was that of contacting your primarily like state representation, because that's the next closest level you're going to have. Because I'm sure the county eventually might have some interests, inputs, etc. when it comes to this, but for the time being, it is a solely city item. And again, if passed, of course, the wide-ranging implications that would come from it and impacts on people outside of just the city of El Paso, undeniable, as it's not just a city within city limits of El Paso type of enterprise. But let's just say, yeah, if you are able to vote on it, would certainly encourage you to do so, whichever way you are driven to do so, because making sure you actually go out and vote is the primary thing I'm interested in here. Of course, I'm sure we'll keep having consideration and conversation on Prop K and its merits, though I will note El Paso Matters has out, as of today, a little bit more on Proposition J. Yeah, the one right next to Prop K. And one that would, they've got their whole voter guide. If you receive El Paso Inc., you may have seen in there from El Paso Matters, actually the 2023 voter guide print here, as I ruffle it by the mic for effect for whatever reason. And so they've got the list down of all of them, though I will say, and this is not on El Paso Matters, but rather the involvement or lack thereof of people actually on the ballots. So they've got across the center spread of their little insert there. It's not little, it's like 20, just under 20 pages. And it's got in the Socorro Independent School Districts, the at-large number, the at-large trustee ones. And for those of you on social media, you're going to be able to see this a little bit better, that most of them didn't respond. There's a bunch of blanks, some without even any pictures on it. But yeah. Honestly, I'm not that surprised, having previously, when we've had less complicated elections going on, delved into what is going on in the individual school board positions. And I feel like that was, unfortunately, maybe not all the time, but more par for the course than is at all comfortable for me, for trying to reach out to people who are asking for your vote and just whiffing every time. Just can't even make contact, which you'd think they'd want you to. Particularly if I'm saying like, hey, I want to interview you, but I guess the bar for applying for running an election doesn't necessarily include actually talking to people. Again, we're not doing that this time around because we got way too much else going on here. And frankly, there's way too many school board positions that we could even do the full justice to in this. So again, referencing you to the El Paso Matters voter guide is something we'll continue to do. And Richard Janasik saying that only props A through K on my ballot, even though there were candidates for Franklin near the polls. Again, it depends if you're in that precinct or not. Not all of the school board positions, even for the major school districts that are on the ballot, are actually up for election this time around. So basically, the Franklin one, if you're in like the Coronado area, its representative is not, or school board trustee is not on the ballot. So that kind of thing going on, that's just, again, my neck of the woods. So yeah. If you want to check it, and there's actually a very easy way to do so, ebcountyvotes.com. You can find out what is on your personal ballot by just like entering your address. And yes, it is the El Paso County Elections Department website. So I would recommend that. It's what I have done when I've had any questions, but let's just say I don't have many questions about what I am or am not voting on this time around, given how much we focused on this election. So that's a bit more about the election than I entirely expected to get into as of the first segment today. And we got a lot of other stuff going on in and around and affecting us here in the borderlands. So let's go ahead and take that first break of this hour right now. And coming out of this, we'll talk more about some of the other interesting subjects going on, like why not to smile in a mugshot, and also some more on crime or the prevention therein, specifically what the FBI is doing when it comes to threats. So let's go ahead and take that break. Coming out of this, of course, more Talk El Paso. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone calls a little bit later, as we usually do. A lot of people commenting already. We'll get into more on those, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is reduced to one lane because of road construction between Copia and Cotton Street. Expect delays till 4 o'clock for that road work. Stalled vehicle is blocking the exit ramp, Border Highway, westbound at Santa Fe. Road construction has the left lane closed on I-10 westbound after Las Muchas Drive. And police and fire still working an injury accident, westbound red at Donovan Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
How could $1,000 change your life?
I could buy eggs.
Then listen for inflation compensation. Your chance to win $1,000 to combat high prices.
Honey, we're going to have eggs.
Yes, it's excellent. Be listening for your chance to win $1,000 with inflation compensation.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9A through 5P, with the inflation compensation on News Radio 690 AM. Brought to you by Charlie Clark Nissan and Charlie Clark Infinity of El Paso.
This report is sponsored by the Tudor Dixon Podcast.
On the next episode of the Tudor Dixon Podcast, why is everyone so sensitive now? Is comedy being canceled? I'll talk about that and have some laughs with Michael Loftus. Catch the Tudor Dixon Podcast with new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Ricardo, quote, "This is one of the greatest inventions ever. I know this may sound like I'm exaggerating, but this sucker is amazing. The first time I did it, I couldn't believe what came out of my sinuses. I could breathe with ease. My wife just bought one too. Thank you for this product," unquote. He's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
I'm at risk of having an unplanned pregnancy.
Of becoming a parent too soon.
Or making a decision I'll regret later.
But if I do face an unplanned pregnancy, a modern adoption plan will put me in control.
I'll choose my baby's parents. And if I want to be in her life,
I'll get the support I need to make life better for me.
Better for my baby.
Modern adoption plans empower women and create more happy lives. Hear stories of empowerment at modernadoptionplans.org.
Attorney Joe Cordell. Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer's skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Dallas-Fort Worth area attorneys. Offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, and St. Louis. CordellCordell.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Again, a lot of commentary coming in from pretty much all of those avenues. Even if you haven't done so already, you're more than welcome to. And those dropping those likes and reacts so far, including Monica Cervantes, Richard Janasik, Ed Clore, James Holmes, Angel Rueda, Ida Beza Gardner, and Robbie Flores. And of course, a lot of commentary on the election, as is, it's going on right now. Early voting has begun as of today, so you got till 7 p.m. Make it out to the polls today. Your hours may vary based on location. Again, source for everything, epcountyvotes.com, but, well, you got some time, so make your plan to go vote. I will continue saying. We're going to put a few more notches into that soapbox this time around. And a lot more conversation going on. And I'm just going to say, I do say vote early and vote often, but definitely don't violate any laws when it comes to doing that. It's halfway a joke and halfway I just remember to vote kind of thing in my mind. But also, yeah, Ed Clore adding that apparently attended the debate last night between Adrian Hutchins, CEO of El Paso Chamber, and Michael Escoto of Sunrise El Paso. Not one of the ones that we had on our program, but similar types of people around from those organizations. Thinking that the pro-Prop K in this case, the Sunrise movement, didn't perform well in his analysis, saying that the CEO of the El Paso Chamber was thorough, had her ducks in a row, and he was nervous and fumbled through his inaccurate notes. So, I mean, if you got your own allusions to how you felt that it went, again, we'll just remind you that we have our entire 2-hour and change interview with the Sunrise El Paso and general proponents, and in some cases, authors of parts of Proposition K over on our YouTube. We'll share that link up again here as soon as I can suss it up and post it over in the comments. So check that out, please, if you are at all uncertain or want to know what the heck are particularly the proponents talking about how will certain things going on. Oh, Ed Clore saying one on extra. Okay, thanks for clarifying that, because I'm aware of a lot of different things going on in our community. So that's the one that was on air. So yeah, we'll see if we can find that link as well and share that up, because certainly interested in people knowing more about this. I'm aware of at least a couple different in-person forums that have also been attended by both of these groups in that similar type of fashion. So, but I appreciate the clarification. There's also Robbie Flores chiming in, and Angel Rueda saying that when he went to vote, I was the youngest person there. Kind of weird. I don't think that's too weird. I was probably pretty close, if not the in the room kind of situation where I was. And it is tending to be it's the trend. El Paso Matters has talked about this in previous elections, that there have been a pretty damn near plurality of voters have been at or above retirement age. And I think that's, I mean, if you want to go vote, I encourage you to do it regardless of your demographic. But the disconnect, particularly from younger generations, I know there are some saying they like that aspect of it. But as I've said before, and will continue to say now, I don't think that's saying we only want these people or only get these people, or any small amount of it going out is not a good thing, because having less people involved is just simply put, never a good thing, except when you're talking about stuck in a fire, which is anyway. Other things going on, of course, here. I usually don't end up talking about specific crime unless it's huge and major in circumstance. We got a couple of updates coming from our news partners at KFOX 14, but I had to comment on this one article title from our news partners at KFOX 14. A woman accused of stabbing man in fight on Pikes Peak Drive in Northeast El Paso. And again, usually wouldn't comment on this except okay, there's that famous safety brief for anyone who was in military service or has known enough people to have heard this story multiple times of before I leave you all in liberty, don't add to the population, don't subtract from the population, and if you do get arrested, and don't end up in the newspaper, the morgue, or prison, and if you do end up in prison, establish dominance quickly. The corollary to that I was always told is never smile in a mugshot. And that's the main reason I'm bringing this one up, is because a woman arrested in a home on the 5,000 blocks of Pikes Peak Drive in El Paso on April 19th. Jasmine, Jazzmine Robinson, was outside the home with a knife when officers arrived. And there is just this, there's so many other phrases I want to use, but smirk on her face. Just never, ever smile in a mugshot. It's not going to serve you well, and might be the reason you end up getting talked about on the news. And I'm not the only one mentioning this. I absolutely have to say that. And speaking of crime, we have talked about in larger ways how there has been maybe not exactly a wave, but it definitely seems like there has been more. In fact, article title from El Paso Inc. out this week: FBI warns of surge in school threats, false reports. Also pointing to some digital signing and billboards that have been popping up around town. This one reading: "Stop threats to our schools before we respond." Get the El Paso police app, and also 1-800-CALL-FBI being put forth there, because, and I've said this and I'll very willing to say it again, that hoax threats, people making idle threats is not acceptable and cannot be accepted in any way. So I'm both happy to see more response happening to this, but sad and unhappy in equal measure that this has to be done in the first place, because unfortunately, as we know, it takes a lot less effort to, throw excrement at a wall than it does to scrape it off and see what's actually a part of it. It's not a fun task either. And that's why coming down hard on those willing to make those hoax, prank, if they think it's a prank, they're going to learn out pretty quickly that it's not. in order to not do so. So the FBI has specifically in our region launched an awareness campaign that stops threats to our schools. 10 digital billboards specifically in the city that they are being featured on. Nationwide, about 6,000 threats were made against school. Again, 2022 is noted by El Paso Wing, and specifically one of the chief agents in charge of El Paso has special agent in charge for El Paso office, Jeffrey Downey, saying that the number of threats has increased 60% since 2021. And specifically, there were 30 threats directed at schools last year. And now he says there are days that they receive as many as 3 threats. So knowing that there's this, continued push for it to say, don't even think about it. Otherwise, the threats are going to be coming down because, students could face state but also federal charges even being made it. John Browson kind of alluding to one of those older ads. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Saying lots of parents have no idea where their kids are and what they are doing after midnight. Yeah, personal and parental responsibility is certainly a factor of this, but as unfortunately many things, kind of gotten behind the individual, hey, parents, keep your kids in line because, sometimes it's not even just kids in some cases. And Amber Bond also chiming in with the rock on. Appreciate it. So that's just one of those, let's put it this way, one of those things that I hate having to talk about, but feel it's important to do so because otherwise this is just idiotic. So a couple other things on the election here. Among other things, our news partners at KFOX 14 do have the what to expect on your ballot for the El Paso City Charter election. They got some of the breakdown, but again, I'll direct you to El Paso Matters voter guide, whether you got it in print or online, elpasomatters.com for this. And a couple of notes they make. This is an allusion back to a story we haven't talked about in a minute. It had been kind of put to bed, at least I thought, ever since we had the resignation of the former district attorney for El Paso and the appointment of the new one. But one of the individuals involved in some of the cases surrounding this, again, title from El Paso Matters here. Vinton gets one applicant for Roger Rodriguez's former judge position, Roger Rodriguez. And if that name sounds vaguely familiar, this is the former judge for the village of Vinton, who may be under FBI investigations for his actions while serving as a legal advisor to then District Attorney Yvonne Rosales. That coming straight from the top of the story from El Paso Matters on this. And so this was being done by, again, the village of Vinton after allowing its contract with the municipal judge, Roger Rodriguez, to expire. And after the application process closed, they voted to continue the search. And so there has been some response to El Paso Matters by this, a no comment from the lawyer representing Roger Rodriguez. But Rodriguez, among other things, and is further noted by El Paso Matters on this, Rodriguez was accused of threatening the family of Alexander Hoffman, a man killed in the 2019 Walmart attack. El Paso lawyer Justin Underwood submitted a report accusing Rodriguez of threatening the family and disclosed that the FBI had asked him for all the information regarding Rodriguez's dealings with the Hoffmans. So not sure how that one's going to work out when it comes to actually having a new municipal judge there. Anyone feeling like they might be qualified is probably encouraged to apply as well. And then, again, also from El Paso Matters, they've been doing individual focuses on all the different things coming through and being a part of the ballot. Prop J. And just the article title here is pretty self-explanatory. Prop J asks voters whether to remove city manager authority over internal auditor. The exact language that you find on the ballot, if you end up going through, clicking through, and checking it out for yourself, is, as I had it up here, but no longer as, I'll just reference my handy-dandy voter guide on this one, because it's honestly one of the simpler things on this ballot, I do have to say. So if you're at all confused or wondering about that, there's been some conversations about the other ones, but Prop J reads, so section 3.20B of the El Paso City Charter be amended to change the reporting structure of the chief internal auditor so the position reports directly to city council. So one of the other important things, there's a lot of other important stuff on this ballot. I've called it a stacked one and will continue to do so until we're finally through it, because there's a lot of, when it comes to school boards or these other propositions, again, Prop K has, at the very least, the amount of printed stuff I've gotten on it is pretty significant in its own right, but there's a lot more to come on that. So let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, I'll talk a little bit more, specifically perhaps about some of the things going on in the land of enchantment. And specifically what's going on with some of the things at NMSU, Lavinia having an event, what Ruidoso is doing for some fire prevention, as well as a little bit more specificity on what has been seen in the first full year of marijuana sales. particularly nearby, and what real tourism may have to do with the revenue being seen from that. So taking that break, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this. Again, phone calls a little bit later, as we usually do. But in the meantime, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. 3 people have been arrested in connection to the officer-involved shooting on April 17th in the parking lot of Jaguar's Gentlemen's Club. It appears El Paso police were driving through the parking lot of the East El Paso Strip Club looking for illegal activity when they came across a couple they questioned and ordered out of a car after they reportedly caught the smell of marijuana. From there, the driver allegedly tried to get back in the car and drive away, dragging police, and then another car allegedly drove toward officers in a threatening manner. A rookie on duty with the police department discharged his service weapon. No one was hurt. 29-year-old Damian Arce, 27-year-old Taisha Mullen, and 29-year-old Contrell James are all under arrest. And El Paso police say a woman who is seen in her booking photo smirking was arrested after she entered a home in Northeast El Paso without permission and stabbed a man. The incident happened at a home on Pikes Peak Drive near Diana and Hondo Pass on April 19th. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound is reduced to one lane because of road construction between Copia and Cotton Street. Expect delays till 4 o'clock for that road work. Stalled vehicle is blocking the exit ramp, Border Highway, westbound at Santa Fe. Road construction has the left lane closed on I-10 westbound after Las Muchas Drive. And police and fire still working an injury accident westbound red at Donovan Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. It looks like we'll see milder temperatures overall tonight, but still a cool start tomorrow morning as we get back down into the 50s to lower 60s. Looking ahead to your Tuesday, a little gustier for tomorrow. Partly cloudy skies, breezy to windy. We'll see west winds about 15 to 30 miles per hour, high around 86 degrees. Then we go cooler, partly cloudy for your Wednesday with highs back down around 80. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Since 2010, Blindster has sold millions of custom blinds, shades, and shutters to satisfied customers across the country with 20,000 five-star reviews and an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau. Custom blinds at low prices and free shipping. Blindster.com.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you again, El Paso, for making us #1 in new Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram sales in March. While other dealers continue to sell their vehicles for over MSRP, we continue to have the best prices in town.
Get huge savings on hundreds of new and certified pre-owned vehicles during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Right now, get $5,000 off MSRP on 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, plus super low 4.9% APR for 72 months. Get $5,500 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport and $6,000 off MSRP on 2023 Dodge Durango SUVs. Worried about your trade or credit? Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect, or if you owe more than your trade is worth. Trade and upgrade for less at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus DTNL, 4.9% APR, 1606 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso. Weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
This week on Red Pilled America, should artificial intelligence be stopped? To find the answer, we speak to an AI expert who tells us where AI is going. Listen to Red Pilled America on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of 2 people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, being on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in there that we'll keep checking in on again. Phone lines a little bit later. And of course, Talk El Paso brought to you in part by Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Find them online at Sunland Park, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram.net, or just head over to 950 Crockett Street, basically right across I-10 from Sunland Park Mall itself. It's been a beautiful day out there today. As again, I was over in the area-ish doing my, early civic duty. So, some of the things being talked about there, including Renato Rivera saying, don't forget the park being built over I-10. They don't talk about the cost of just expanding the lane, $750 million. That doesn't include the cost for the park. You're not wrong about those efforts underway. What's going to happen with I-10, at the very least, the refinishing, maybe not the widening, though it kind of feels like we're maybe getting more on that trajectory of doing the widening. That part's, again, I-10 work itself is going to happen. I will say that the deck park that we've talked about a bit, there have been more community meetings going on, some going on last week specifically, has had a little bit more focus on it lately, but I wouldn't call that a done deal just yet. And actually, the parts of it, the I-10 part and then the part that would go over it, the deck park we're talking about, are technically separate projects, one incumbent on the other, obviously, and one being not funded specifically. TxDOT is state funded, state fees and things go into that. I'm sure there's a local match parts that'll have to go into, particularly like making local roadways work up with that. So I'm not going to say it's cost less, and it's certainly built on property taxes, excise taxes, the state taxes that you pay, those kind of things, etc. So I'm not saying that it's like free, therefore, yay. There's still, we pay for it, just maybe not entirely just sourced from the local area. But I will say that's a little bit more intractable. I have a feeling we're going to be delving a little bit more into that once we get past the election, among other things. So, and again, more intimations about it costing money, I will say. But Louis Panado actually saying people are coming here to buy weed, aren't tourists going to the zoo, buy Mexican curios, or visit Waco tanks. But when I was talking about that, and specifically, of course, 420 was last week for those of you who know, but some of the interesting numbers actually being put forth, including specifically by El Paso Inc., article title from this most recent edition, El Paso's New Mexico neighbors ride marijuana high. What I meant by tourism is more specifically not people flying into El Paso and then going all to these places. I mean, people from El Paso going out and doing this. And my contention is basically based on this. El Paso Inc., specifically from the New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department, has the breakdown of most of the major communities surrounding El Paso in New Mexico that saw sales. And, well, let's just put it this way. It does seem like both proximity to El Paso as well as a tourism destination-ish had an impact on it. So just alphabetically here, Alamogordo, $5.7 million. And this is in total sales, not in just the state revenue or anything. Anthony was $5.4 million. Chaparral was $3.9 million. Cloudcroft, about $725,000. Ruidoso, $7.9 million. Sunland Park, $19.4 million. And Truth or Consequences, $1.9 million. So there's definitely a aspect of how close they are in proximity to El Paso. Sure, it's arguable that Cloudcroft and Ruidoso are decently close enough. So why was there big of a difference? And yet, I feel like maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you have different considerations of it out there. I'd love to hear from you. That Cloudcroft is kind of the place where people go because they have a cabin, have a place to stay, have owned a place for a long time. Whereas Ruidoso is the place you go for when you want to go rent a place. I'm sure there's Airbnb has turned all of this over, but the people I know, the family I've had that have had those kind of things, that feels like the difference up there. So the fact that Ruidoso came in for basically the local region in second place, only behind, third place behind Las Cruces and Sunland Park. But the fact that Sunland Park did damn near as much as Las Cruces itself is telling to me. Again, if someone wants to open that side door pot store, consider the consider the name for free for me, though I wonder if some other organizations that have similar-ish names out there might have some issue with you filing that name. But in any case, I mean, there's more of that. As I was opening on 420, what is the new one now that was being focused on by El Paso Inc., a Field of Dreams dispensary and grow facility? Not pointing that one out specifically, but there's, well, a lot of this and a lot of focus on it. And so I'm not going to be surprised. So just that there was, I gotta say, probably accessibility and tourism ability, if that's a word, from El Paso was a significant factor of it. Is interesting as we have Mondo Mancanda joining us over on the specifically the Twitch stream. Hey to you as well. Thanks for chiming in and adding your 2 cents from over there. But otherwise, some other things going on and certainly affecting this community is El Paso Inc. also, as of this most recent edition, has a deep dive inside the campaign, specifically of No Way Prop K. So now some of the mailers I've been holding up have been specifically as being listed for the El Pasoans for Prosperity Pact. In fact, that's, I think, the ones that we've gotten almost entirely. Yep, the El Pasoans for Prosperity Pact. Those ones I've received. But of course, we had the interview on last week with the people from the, again, getting this name right, Consumer Energy Alliance, of which, yes, full transparency, they are advertising on this station as well, but that has no implications on our editorial decisions. So when it comes to this specific aspect of it, they're focusing on that part of it. And so they got the deep dive into both the points that are being put forth, similar to what we got into, but also specific ways that they're going out about it, including the amount of television advertising, flyers, door-to-door in some cases. If anyone's had anyone come door-to-door for you besides, again, elected officials or wanting to be elected officials, I've gotten that, certainly. That one's happened to me, even though they always seem to be out when they're doing it. And no, I'm not just saying that I'm like hiding in the corner away from the doorbell. They just come home and I find a small stack of them on or around my doorknob. But in any case, what we're looking at that there actually is on Prop K, apparently local canvassers. So again, if anyone has had experience that, I would love to hear from you and know what that was like for you and what kind of a message they were putting out. But El Paso Inc. delves even further into the way the canvassing is going on. And specifically, they're looking very much towards April 28th because, among other things, that is the 8-day out before the election, and when a whole lot of campaign finance reports, including those filing of issues on it, may be more available. So they specifically note that the Consumer Energy Alliance operates as a 501c4, a tax-exempt organization that is not run for profit, but must be operated exclusively to promote social welfare, according to the IRS. And, of course, they do note further on that of the major companies, 350 companies and 550,000 individuals, some big names are, of course, supporting of that organization: Chevron, ExxonMobil, Phillips 66, Shell USA, and Caterpillar, with a lot of other ones, including, as they note, trucking associations, farm bureaus, electric utility groups, local chambers of commerce, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And they have been very much out there and putting information out there on Prop K, specifically opposed to it. So seeing how much has been being spent on, I think it was El Paso Matters even earlier, want to say late last month, that was specifically on that there was at least $100,000 that had been spent just on campaigning in our area, specifically against Prop K. So this is going to continue taking up quite a lot of air in the room, but not just only looking forward. As noted again by El Paso Inc. here, that the El Paso mayor gave the State of the City address this past weekend, and did not specifically address the May 6th election, but did talk about things such as the migrant crisis, public safety, and economic development in El Paso and downtown. Of course, we are still pending upon that other big date coming up, that of May 11th, of which there is still a lot of anticipation and expectation of what may or may not be happening. I will say that some of the numbers we're looking at, I'll always refer people over, as long as it exists anyway, to the elpasotexas.gov/migrant-crisis, the migrant dashboards, and specifically the migrant situational awareness dashboard, showing that there has been a dipping down of these, both the CBP encounters, rolling 7-day average, up from a recent high watermark, certainly I think as of this year, high watermark of about 1,300 encounters, 7-day average, down to about 700 so far this week, and of the in custody, rolling 7-day average from about 4,300 down to just over 2,000. So there's still a lot anticipated there when it comes to this, including the tens of thousands estimated to be particularly from or points of origin from Venezuela or other Central or South American countries, but primarily Venezuela is the one that's being cited. And what will happen May 11th with that anticipated end of not even just Title 42, but also of the all remaining pandemic-related policies. So, yeah, a lot going on there. John Browsden, when it comes to the whole pot situation, saying lots of new drug addicts in New Mexico and El Paso. New Mexico could have gotten almost as much money from the oil and gas industry. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen any exact numbers on that, I'll say that much. But there's also been efforts going on with the oil and gas industry. I'll definitely say that. And Renato Rivera saying that enough is enough. Public needs to mobilize to stop implementation of all of the wasteful projects. Selling weed. It's almost like not liking the impact that it's having on the city, among other things. So tell you what, let's go ahead and get back into and on to some of those issues. Also noting a couple of things going on that Texas Tribune specifically noting that finding and keeping workers in post-pandemic economy is a struggle for West Texas. Local leaders tell the Fed, West Texas in this case, referring to like a Midland and Odessa specifically, which not hating on it, but not as much input from out of this area. Anytime I see West Texas mentioned, I'm often perking up my ears or looking a little bit closer. But yeah, Midland and Odessa specifically, and like the colleges and oil field industries out there, Permian Basin in general, the focus of this particular one. So not so much of our West Texas. Let's put it that way. Far West Texas, I think we often end up getting called. But let's go ahead and take that next break right now. And once we come out of this break, we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines, or going into it, we'll go ahead and open the phone lines now. So if you want to get on the line, we'll go ahead and open those now. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is reduced to one lane because of road construction between Copia and Cotton Street. Expect delays till 4 o'clock for that road work. Stalled vehicle is blocking the exit ramp, border highway, westbound at Santa Fe. Road construction has the left lane closed on I-10 westbound after Las Muchas Drive. And police and fire still working an injury accident westbound red at Donovan Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Hurry and shop the final days of Springfest at Lowe's. Save on select Bonnie 19.3-ounce vegetables and herbs, 3 for $12. Lowe's knows spring. Lowe's knows home improvement. Through 4/26 in-store only. Plant size varies. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
If your credit card debt is out of control, if you're in over your head in monthly payments, there's a secret the credit card companies don't want you to know. If you have more than $10,000 in credit card debt, you have the right to let us settle that debt for a fraction of what you owe. That's bad news for the credit card companies, but it's great news for you. We're Credit Associates, and we're offering you free information on how to completely resolve your credit card debt with a monthly payment you can afford. To see how much you could save, call now. 800-500-6135. Don't declare bankruptcy. Don't consolidate. Give us 10 minutes, and we could save you thousands and offer a guarantee, so there's no risk to call now. 800-500-6135. For the secret the credit card companies don't want you to know, call Credit Associates for free now and see how much money you could save. Call 800-500-6135. 800-500-6135.
Result of negotiations not guaranteed. Not available in all states. Approximate discounts of up to half before our fees based on an average enrolled debt and results.
Hey, let's force the city to buy the electric company for $8 billion.
It costs 8 times more than El Paso's budget.
Yeah.
Property taxes would skyrocket. That's an awful idea.
That's Prop K. And that's not all. Prop K shuts off water at some gas stations.
That's crazy. No bathrooms or water to stop a fire?
Small price to pay to stop pollution.
But the Environmental Protection Agency said most of El Paso's pollution comes from international sources, not us.
Let's pass it anyway.
Even if it means raising everyone's electric bills and property taxes and cutting police and firefighters?
Now you get it.
This is the worst idea ever. Who wrote this?
My neighbors did.
How can you call yourself an El Pasoan?
I don't. I'm from Austin.
Austin wrote it. Only El Paso can stop it. On May 6th, vote no on Prop K, the worst idea in El Paso history. Political ad paid for by El Pasoans for Prosperity PAC.
I'm Ben Ferguson. And I'm Ted Cruz. Corruption in Washington. A total of 9 Biden family members got millions of dollars from communist China.
Find out about all this and more on Verdict with Ted Cruz.
Download it now wherever you get your podcasts.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, getting into our calls for the start of this week. So keep that number handy, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Phone lines open now, and they are available. Make that perfectly clear. And just as a technical note, if you're going to call in, and make sure that we... getting into the issues here, so we got more commentary coming in, but if you're on the line and you want us to take the call, but we haven't greeted you yet, stay by the line, because once we try to greet you, if you're not there, or we hear a lot of clanging around, it didn't sound like a pocket dial, but it definitely sounded like someone had put the phone down and then was either cooking or was beating the chicken to death. I'm not sure which. So just stay by the phone, or at least have it on speaker so you can hear us if we say, "Hey, what's your name?" kind of thing. So just as a personal note from me. Anyway, we do have calls on the line there. So again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Reynaldo Rivera putting it out. I mean, I often argue that there's more than enough things going on in the region for us to do this for. Maybe not. I don't want to get anywhere near doing a whole 24-hour news cycle, particularly locally. But Reynaldo Rivera putting it out decently succinctly this time around that there are enough ongoing issues in El Paso to make me, the host here, a one-legged person in a two-legged race, or in a something kicking contest. Not being disrespectful to the impaired out there. I mean, sure, but I get the illusion there that we could hop around all day and still never touch on everything going on. We do our level best, particularly of the important and impacting, or at the very least interesting ones. But okay, let's just put it, that's what Friday's for. Anyway, we get back to those phone lines now. Again, we got Jerry in the Northwest on the line with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. I know you like to stick to local issues here, but sometimes there are votes that go on in Washington, D.C. that happen that people don't know about back home that will affect them for the rest of their lives. Okay. One of those things is H.R. 79.
Okay.
H.R. 79 deals with the WHO and IDs from the WHO, the World Health Organization. They're going to have a big meeting in, I believe it's Abu Dhabi or something like that, on health, world health. Real close here, all the nations are going to meet. And President Biden is going to try to give over our freedoms to say yes or no whether we can get vaccinations based on our own health issues from the WHO. The WHO is going to try to force everybody to abide by their rules. In other words, and HR 79 is there to stop this. Okay, because this would be a treaty, world treaty, and it has to go through the Senate in order to be approved as a treaty. So you will not be able to board a plane anywhere unless you have records approved by the World Health Organization, especially if you're traveling out of the United States or into the United States, across national lines. So it's important that people get a hold of their congresswoman or man and have them support H.R. 79.
And I mean, I understand what you're saying about the importance of this. I will say that, this is the Friday territory for sure. But just since you brought it up very briefly, H.R. 79 in the 118th Congress, on the one going on right now, it's titled as the WHO Withdrawal Act. and saying this bill requires the president to immediately withdraw the United States from the World Health Organization's WHO and prohibit using any federal funds to provide for U.S. participation in the WHO. And the bill also repeals the 1948 Act authorizing the United States to join the WHO. Let me just put it this way, kind of to the broader issue of it, of the idea of mandating medical care. Such a concept, to my understanding, I'm not a physician, among many other things, and have never pretended, intimated, or to be any kind of medical expert. Let me just put it this way. Anything that will require someone to receive any certain kind of treatment, procedure, etc., goes against, essentially, modern medical practice, theory, execution, etc. I mean, seriously. The fact of the matter is that not being able, you have the ability to refuse anything, even life-saving. And sure, there have court cases that have been going on saying someone is incapacitated and don't have the right, don't have the mental ability to say that they do not want to receive something. But I mean, that goes to core concepts of bodily autonomy, the ability to decide of what goes on with you, with yourself, that has been very much at issue more recently. So as much as I can understand there being a level of concern coming with that, this wouldn't even just the idea of that being required and having to be done wouldn't just even be in contravention of, well, your own personal concerns, but of, again, ways things are done medically in the U.S. So, I mean, as much as, I can understand your concern with this, I would be very, very surprised if the U.S., I mean, it's been very loath to give up major autonomy to other parts or any other international organization. So, I mean, HR 79, if you want to encapsulate it that way, I'm going to be surprised if that moves forward specifically, but the general effort of abdicating any responsibility to an international body has not been very well received at any level in previous years.
Okay. And it's important that we do this because there's going to be a treaty. And according to our Constitution, every treaty has to be approved by the U.S. Senate.
Mm-hmm.
So they're taking away our rights, giving it to an out-of-nation, a world organization out of our control that we won't have any say against. You understand what I'm saying? We cannot fight that here in El Paso, as Jerry on the east side has no ability to even get a hold of anybody in the World Health Organization to express my opinion or whatever. Even though I'm not a medical person, I still have the right to my own bodily functions. Okay?
Yep, no, I would certainly agree with you on that point here, but tell you what, we got to take that next break to the top of the hour now. So
okay.
do appreciate the point in the call. Sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, and with that, let's go ahead and take that break again. If you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso and the top of the hour news on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is reduced to one lane because of road construction between Copia and Cotton Street. Expect delays till 4 o'clock for that road work. Stalled vehicle is blocking the exit ramp, Border Highway, westbound at Santa Fe. Road construction has the left lane closed on I-10 westbound after Las Muchas Drive. And police and fire still working an injury accident westbound red at Donovan Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
43 years ago, a wish made by 7-year-old Chris Gracious to become a police officer ignited the global movement known as Make-A-Wish. Today, over 500,000 wishes have been granted, providing children with the strength to fight their critical illnesses and transforming entire communities with hope. But every 20 minutes, another child will learn they have a critical illness. Join iHeartRadio and Make-A-Wish on April 29th, World Wish Day, and help give Wish kids the hope and strength to fight their illnesses. Visit wish.org to find out how.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. A majority of Americans apparently don't want either President Biden or former President Trump to run for the White House in 2024. NBC's Bree Jackson has the latest as former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson weighs in.
Our NBC News poll shows voters do not have the appetite for a Biden-Trump rematch, a sentiment even some Republicans agree with.
And so We don't want to repeat that. It takes alternatives.
An NBC News poll finds 70% of those surveyed, including just over half of all Democrats, believe Biden should not run for a second term. As for Trump, 60% of those polled, including a third of Republicans, think the former president should not run in 2024. Meantime, President Biden is expected to launch his re-election campaign as early as tomorrow. The Secretary of State is announcing a 3-day ceasefire in Sudan. Antony Blinken said the Sudanese armed forces and rapid support forces came to the agreement to begin the ceasefire tonight at midnight after 48 hours of negotiation. Aaron Rodgers is being traded to the New York Jets. More from Lisa G.
The Green Bay Packers and Jets finally agreed to the deal for the 39-year-old to come and play for New York. Rodgers recently said he wanted to play here.
Because I still have that fire and I want to play and I would like to play in New York.
The Jets haven't made the postseason since 2010, the longest streak in the NFL. So Jets fans will see Rodgers in a Jets uniform this season.
The Donald Trump civil rape trial is starting tomorrow in a lower Manhattan courthouse. The charges were filed by writer E. Jean Carroll, who claims the former president assaulted her in a luxury department store dressing room back in the 90s and then ruined her reputation by denying it. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Authorities are investigating what caused flames to erupt at Disneyland's Fantasmic Fireworks and Light Show on Saturday night.
Stunned viewers could not believe what they were seeing as the fire took off, making its way to the top of the prop dragon.
Oh my gosh!
Your attention, please. Due to unforeseen circumstances.
Oh my God.
Performance of
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Disney officials evacuated the area. Performers on the float were able to get off safely and no one was hurt. I'm Trey Thomas.
Actor and comedian Richard Lewis says he's been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He said in a video posted on Twitter on Sunday that he's focusing on writing and acting now instead of doing stand-up after wrapping up season 12 of the latest Curb Your Enthusiasm. Lewis revealed he's had sort of a rocky time since having several surgeries on his shoulder, back, and hip, in addition to Parkinson's. The ACLU is stepping up the battle against Virginia book bans. Richard Stelling reports.
A new fight is brewing over 14 library books removed from Spotsylvania County high schools. The American Civil Liberties Union now wants the Virginia State Board to step in after last month's ban. The superintendent said it was easier to remove the books than notify parents about each one that contained sexual content as per state law. But the ACLU claims he's interpreting that wrong and calls the move unconstitutional.
Today is National Bucket List Day. April 24th celebrates it to remind folks to set new goals and live life to the fullest. A bucket list is defined as things a person would like to experience or accomplish before they die, also known as kicking the bucket. It can include vacation destinations, life milestones like graduating from college, or something like going skydiving. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bank. That's bank. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by The Mark Moss Show.
While we're all distracted with culture wars and politics, the global central bank digital currency just released. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to The Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm at risk of having an unplanned pregnancy.
Of becoming a parent too soon. Or making a decision I'll regret later.
But if I do face an unplanned pregnancy, a modern adoption plan will put me in control.
I'll choose my baby's parents. And if I want to be in her life, I'll get the support I need to make life better for me. Better for my baby.
Modern adoption plans empower women and create more happy lives. Hear stories of empowerment at modernadoptionplans.org.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you again, El Paso, for making us #1 in new Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram sales in March. While other dealers continue to sell their vehicles for over MSRP, we continue to have the best prices in town.
Get huge savings on hundreds of new and certified pre-owned vehicles during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Right now, get $5,000 off MSRP on 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, plus super low 4.9% APR for 72 months. Get $5,500 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport and $6,000 off MSRP on 2023 Dodge Durango SUVs. Worried about your trade or credit? Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. Or if you owe more than your trade is worth. Trade and upgrade for less at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL, 4.9% APR, 1606 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Rosetta Stone, where language is learned. RosettaStone.com.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
It's Elliot in the morning. Rod Ryan Show. Check it in.
It's the Woody Show. All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
The 2023 iHeartRadio Music Awards.
All of the best free curated playlists.
All the rock for all the people.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
This is Freddie Prinze Jr. from the Wrestling with Freddie podcast.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
This Pete from Fall Out Boy.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am and continue to be your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media campaigns and places that we are these days. So whatever works for you, however you're tuning in, chiming in, want to be a part of, or just participate in all these things. Again, have that phone number open and available right now. And yes, there is availability on it. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. And so again, some comments there and calls and other people tuning in, chiming in over on the social media, including Monica Cervantes, Richard Janisique, Ed Clora, James Holmes, Angel Rueda, Ida Beza Gardner, and Ravi Flores. At the very least, I think that's the latest. Let me see if I got to refresh myself here, because sometimes the Facebooks along with the Googles don't show you exactly what's going on. Yes. Okay. So that is correct. So if you want to drop that like and react, we do appreciate that. As was noted in previous days, I'm never quite sure how to do the calculations on this, because the way Facebook shows it to me these days, we have 996 followers, but then 76 following. I'm just going to say that I think we're 4 away from 1,000 there. So if you want to drop us that follow on the page itself, or the like, whatever it lets you do these days. I'm never quite sure what Facebook is doing until they tell us what they're doing, which is never. So if you want to do that over there, or follow us on any of the other social media, we certainly do appreciate it. So some of the comments coming in, including a Mark Mandingo saying I have 2 legs but have use of one, kind of like saying Governor Abbott stands with Texas. Yeah, some interesting comments coming in there. Certainly, if you want to, as well as Willie Jenkins and Bernadette Bandicole. Hello and good afternoon to y'all as well. And Mark, you also letting us know that traffic stinks over at Red and Wrestler. Yeah, it's probably going to be that way for the next couple of years. I don't actually know the end date expected for that whole I-10 widening in that part. That's where it's going on, basically towards the state line, and they always feel like they've been going on forever, but it'll eventually come to an end one way or the other. So anyway, again, if you want to get on the line, don't forget that number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Right now we do have Raul in the Northeast in the line with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, Jerry on the WHO's plan to rule over everyone. Scary. Oh, it's scary. You know, I'll tell you what I think affects El Pasoans, including some of your callers and posters. Mm-hmm. Fake news, disinformation, and outright lies. Like the ones Tucker Carlson, who got fired today, spread. The same lies and defamations his fellow anchors, like Sean Hannity, who precedes your show on this station, spread. I heard those lies on this radio station. And misinformation, fake news, lies influence some of El Pasoans, primarily those on the right and the Trumpers. Now, I've got some questions for you. I'm really trying to find out, and I think you might have more insight about this than I do. Why is Trump so popular with Republicans, with the overwhelming majority of them favoring him for the presidential nomination?
You actually want me to answer this question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, as near as I can tell, and the reason it's put forth is that, okay, I find this amusing in a variety of ways, but it is a pretty constantly held belief on both sides of the aisle, as far as I can tell, that they feel like the opposite side is well organized, well effectuated, and constantly achieving their goals, while the people that they vote for and support are disorganized, can't manage the way out of a wet paper bag, and just don't know what the heck is going on and keep letting things slip away from them. And the part that is amusing to me is that this is pretty consistently held on both sides of the aisle, pointed the opposite direction. So I got to say, I mean, if you want to talk about Donald Trump as a political animal and the way he came about this in a very different way than any recent I mean, we're talking living memory, and probably then a bit more, closest I could really think of. I mean, at the very least time, there was a outsider-ish that managed to, okay, it wasn't for a main political party. I'm thinking about Teddy Roosevelt and his whole Bull Moose Party run, which, I mean, didn't work for him, but this is more in the vein of that than it is just someone like, oh, hey, I know I'm a non-traditional candidate going for political office, but it ended up working. And of course, there was the whole intimation towards, if I don't get that nomination, I'm going to run on my own elsewhere. But the difference of the support of it, I mean, again, think about going to within living memory. I keep going back to Michael Dukakis, which is, I mean, before my time, like really being aware politically, but the fact that he had this one goofy video of him driving around in a tank, and that was enough to sink his political career, you would think, and it's often arguable, that there were a lot of similar types of efforts, at least the perception put forth when it comes to Donald Trump, as a, okay, well, this will probably take care of that, done by name an organization or a type of effort that was opposed to him, and we're expecting that to work, and it just didn't. And that is tantamount, I have to say, towards the non-standard support network he has. I mean, okay, Donald Trump, as you often reference, has come up in the, let's just call it the zeitgeist, many different times over the year, both as, business, The Apprentice, being opposition to, and the whole birtherism with President Obama. That's the time when it crested the surface. Let's just put it that way. But it never stopped. It just kind of dropped out of mainstream notice. And so I would argue it was kind of more of a feature, not a bug. The fact that he was building his own support network, and people very amped up, and people who were arguably, I know there's been a lot more focus on, just for me on this, focused on those that felt disenfranchised, disconnected, not really a part of the political process. And so I would say he was very successful in that way, in galvanizing that specific subset. And I would say that some of the efforts opposed to that were maybe not as effective. I mean, the whole deplorable thing did not work out. In fact, I would argue backfired spectacularly, because if you're not taking people at face value and at their and where they are, you're going to be missing them entirely. So reaching both populations that were not really a part of, let's call it, I mean, they may have conservative values, but not part of the mainstream conservative movement, and therefore bringing an energy that would be, I mean, you often try to find a political candidate to coalesce around and therefore bring the attention, the excitement for more locally, or at least statewide. You could argue that O'Rourke was kind of trying to be that for Democrats here in Texas, something to rally around and kind of, hitch the wagon to that star kind of thing. And we saw nationwide, again, when we're talking about the Republican Party, a lot of people do that, or some held their noses, some doing enthusiastically, and that debate kind of does continue on. But if you're wondering why he was so successful on it, because, I mean, none of the real other efforts, including within the party itself, were able to stop it. So I'm not going to call it juggernaut-ish, but the fact of the matter is that this is something that is going to continue to be studied, I'm sure, for decades to come, on how he was able to coalesce and maintain such power, even within his own party. There was vehement opposition, but he managed to kind of bulldoze through all of it.
Well, with the many great Americans that there are, super compassionate people, super smart, credentialed, acknowledged leaders in their fields, moral, ethical, principled people without criminal records, or thousands of people accusing them of ripping them off, or dozens of women accusing the candidate for the presidency of sexually being attacked by him. Why couldn't the Republicans find someone better than this highly divisive and notorious Trump?
Again, as a sincere question, as I will choose to take at this point, I mean, that is part of the debate that's going on right now, is who else can be done. And let's be honest, I can see it being 20, 30, 40 years down the road that there's going to be, as much as there was your phrase is comedy, I'm a Reagan era Republican, or a, descendant of that kind of methodology. I can see people saying that I'm a Trump era Republican or something along those lines. I don't think that the way things have, I mean, we've seen essentially a political revolution, not in the pitchforks and torches sense, but in the industrial revolution kind of sense of the way things work, and a change in the very basics of the system. Now, of course, some of the mechanisms, the primary process, caucusing, that still does remain, but the way it can be used, I mean, there's no strict playbook on how it does or has to work, except for the processes themselves, but how they can be applied for, how they can be, well, essentially people applied in order to support it or not. I mean, it has changed. There is going to be no going back to the past on this. So as much as there is a debate, and we've referenced this previously, kind of as I've put it, as the soul for the Republican Party, and is there a way to be a Republican without being a Trump supporter in this day and age? And I feel like that conversation has been ongoing and changed at various points in time. But let me say this, I don't think we're going to see any going back to the way things were, anything less than a similar vein. I mean, even DeSantis, who has been being talked about as one of the major proponents or opponents within this primary process, going towards or against, I guess in this case, the former president, is very much taking a few pages out of the same playbook from the former president. So I don't think there will be any return to I think sanity, as you're effectively putting it, or politics as usual, as others would put it.
Why are there so many Trump haters, and what do they find objectionable and unpresidential about him?
I mean, if you're trying to say what I don't like about the president, I mean, I've made that clear in the past, and I think you've made more than a few allusions to what you don't like about him. So I think you're much more qualified than that. But it just, as much as I'm getting coriated in the comments about this, is there anything local you'd like to address on today? As much as, I mean, this is absolutely a Friday discussion.
Well, you brought up on your page there, introducing the show about why not to smile on the mugshot.
Yeah.
Tell me, why not? Why?
Okay.
I think Trump will eventually have his mugshot taken. I wonder if he'll be smiling. But why tell him why not to smile?
I mean, we talked about that at the start of the show. Specifically, article title from our news partners at KFOX 14, woman accused of stabbing a man in fight on Pikes Peak Drive in Northeast El Paso. And she's got this kind of crazy-eyed smirk on her face there. And there's a lot of good examples over the years, including I think Bill Gates had one where she was doing this kind of clueless grin on his face. I think it was like a teenager or something, or early 20s. It's never a good idea, because at the very least it makes people like me talk about it.
Thanks.
All right, sure. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it for assuming sincerity on parts of this. Tell you what, we got more to come up here, and we got more calls in line and more comments that we'll be getting to. So if you want to get on that line, is a space available now, or maybe will be? 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is reduced to one lane because of road construction between Copia and Cotton Street. Expect delays till 4 o'clock for that road work. Stalled vehicle is blocking the exit ramp, Border Highway, westbound at Santa Fe. Road construction has the left lane closed on I-10 westbound after Las Muchas Drive. And police and fire still working an injury accident westbound red at Donovan Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
How could $1,000 change your life?
I could buy eggs.
Then listen for inflation compensation. Your chance to win $1,000 to combat high prices.
Honey, we're going to have eggs.
Yes, it's excellent. Be listening for your chance to win $1,000 with inflation compensation.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9 through 5 p. with the inflation compensation on News Radio 690 AM. Brought to you by Charlie Clark Nissan and Charlie Clark Infinity of El Paso.
Orale!
This report is sponsored by the Tudor Dixon Podcast.
On the next episode of the Tudor Dixon Podcast, why is everyone so sensitive now? Is comedy being canceled? I'll talk about that and have some laughs with Michael Loftus. Catch the Tudor Dixon Podcast with new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Tara, quote, "My doctor wanted me to do saline rinses for my allergies, but I've never been able to successfully use a neti pot. Navage uses suction power, so it's foolproof. There are nights when I'll have particularly bothersome allergies. I'll bust it out, and the results are immediate. It's such a relief. It's become a lifesaver," unquote. She's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
Ad paid for by the Sentinel Group. Attention veterans, active duty military, civilians, and contractors. If you were issued earplugs between 1999 and 2015 and were diagnosed with hearing loss or ringing in the ears, you may be entitled to compensation. The manufacturer of these military earplugs recently paid $9.1 million to resolve claims that their earplugs were defective, potentially exposing service members to damaging sound levels that could have resulted in hearing loss or tinnitus. If you or a loved one were issued earplugs and were diagnosed with tinnitus or hearing loss, don't wait. You fought for this country, and our attorneys want to fight for you. Call 800-395-1813 now for a free legal consultation and to see if you may be eligible to file a claim. Time restrictions may apply, and you pay nothing unless there's a recovery in your favor. So call 800-395-1813 now. Again, 800-395-1813. That's 800-395-1813.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Lots to get into, a lot being discussed, and a lot of people chiming in, tuning in, adding their 2 cents. Again, the phone line, now it's full up, but keep that number handy, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have at least one comment here, Ronaldo Rivera, saying one thing for sure, 690 is getting the people informed about the issues. Doesn't matter if one agrees or not, it's discussion. Appreciate the idea of that, because, yeah, delving into the issues, hearing from people is certainly important, but there's always a lot more that is going to be going on than we can get to. So if you want to be part of it, certainly encouraged to do so. So let's get back to those phone lines now. We do have Barbara on the west side with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. Well, I finally got to listen to last Thursday's interview.
Okay.
Early this morning. And the guy was great. I especially liked the severability clause comment that he made. And that goes right to the comment that one of the advocates, Escoto or Siegel or that Brian guy, where they said they specifically weren't clear because some of the provisions in the charter itself may not be legal. Now, who writes a multi-billion-dollar charter expecting some of the stuff in there not to be legal? They didn't do their research. They just wanted this thrown out, and they had an active youth group here in El Paso. They had a climate change agenda. So, let's throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And if later on down the road there are lawsuits, there's litigation, well, it's the people of El Paso that are going to pay for it, not us. So they just go on to another city. So I liked the fact that he mentioned that.
Okay.
It's like I likened it to, you or me or somebody going to our attorney and we want our wills drawn, and then we tell them we want this clause in there, knowing it's illegal, but that's okay because you know what? We're not going to have to deal with it. Our children are. So that's what they did. We're not going to have to deal with provisions that may be illegal, but put them in there anyway, just in case they happen to pass. So I appreciated that severability clause that he mentioned there.
Okay.
And then the next thing I was going to talk about is Title IX. Remember a year ago I called in, I said, everybody get in, go into the government comment site and oppose changing Title IX to include, take out biological sex and put in gender identity. Well, the results of that comment period were overwhelmingly opposed to changing Title IX. Well, now we're hearing that President Biden's going to change Title IX to change that definition. So we're going to have men in women's sports if they get their way, although the public voted against that. And last week, the House passed a bill prohibiting trans athletes from participating in women's sports and girls' sports. Every single Democrat voted against it, including our representatives. I think we have a basketball team, female, at UTEP. I think we have a volleyball team, female. Is she saying men can now play against our women? Shameful, Congressman Escobar. Shameful. Women are women, and until you can prove a man is born with 2 X chromosomes, a vagina, a uterus, ovaries, and everything it takes to birth a child, that person is a man. No, nothing in the world is going to convert a man to a woman. They can say they're men, they can pretend they're men, they may want to be men, but God did not make men in the likeness of women. And the next thing I was just listening to Raul on lies. Let me talk about some lies. The Bidens and the money they're getting from Russia, China, Afghanistan, Romania, and I don't know how many other countries they made money on. Okay, the suspicious activity report started with 3, with Hunter and his brother, and I think his sister, and then it went to 9, and today it's up to 12 Biden family members making money on the family name. Another lie is Biden knew nothing about Hunter's business. Well, he did. He was very much involved, had I don't know how many meetings at the White House while he was vice president with, I think, some members of Burisma. And listen to this. They were talking about fracking, which is one of the first things Biden shut down in the USA when he took over presidency. He doesn't want any energy out of the U.S., but he wants it from Ukraine and other countries, frack and send it on over. So that was a big lie. And then he said that they weren't involved in the letter that 51 former military generals signed stating the laptop was false, was Russian information. Turns out that Blinken and perhaps Biden were both involved in getting that letter to them. And then we heard that we didn't have any military in Afghanistan. Well, it turns out that we do have troops in Afghanistan, that the laptop was misinformation. Well, it isn't misinformation. And now we hear that the Assistant Attorney General that was hired by Biden to work in the office that is now prosecuting Hunter is Hunter's former partner in his law firm. I mean, how much closer can they get? This is another lie. We've got secure borders. This is another lie. The DOJ isn't involved in Hunter's laptop when he's the one that has that his office has stopped the prosecution from going forward in Delaware on Hunter Biden. Now we have whistleblowers telling us the truth. So there's lies everywhere coming out of the White House. And Biden is wanting to run for president again. 70% of the country does not want him to run. So when Raul talks about lies, I mean, I didn't hear Trump's kids go get, fly with his dad to go get business and bring back money and enter into contracts for fracking and promise China that they would be getting sweetheart deals once he went into the presidency on our fuel, on our energy, of all things in the world. So there is absolutely nothing honest about this White House that you can count on. The border You should hear their guidelines for who should be coming in after Title 42 is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is nobody that can't come in. Based on the guidelines that they talked about today, there is not one single individual in this world that can't come in. The 660,000 in Mexico that we heard about from the UN, they're waiting to come in. Anybody, if you listen today, can come and cross our borders. Our schools are inundated. You know what's happening in New York. Our children are being used as interpreters. Now, how well can they be doing in school? They don't care about 95,000 unaccompanied minor children being lost in the system. These are lives, Raul. These are people's lives. These are children's lives. They are lost in our system. I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. I can't imagine the heartache, the heartbreak parents feel for these kids. 95,000 of them lost in our country. Do you hear Mayorkas? No, he's in Colombia and where else? Guatemala, wanting our border patrol over there, trying to stop the flow. Can't they understand that they send a message to the world that we're open? And now with these changes on how you can come in, it's a further neon sign to the world. It's brighter. It's everywhere. This flow is not going to stop. And our congresswoman, I never heard her say, "Ho, ho, ho, we better, put the brakes on this. We need to stop this because our community cannot withstand the tsunami of people coming in through our border, through our front doors after Title 42 is gone." So don't talk to El Paso about lies, Raul. We live a lie every day under this administration. There is nothing every single week. I look for something honest coming from this administration. I don't hear it.
And of course, we are anticipating, of course, the re-election announcement. I could have sworn it was already being made already, but apparently a video will be coming out at this point sometime this week. So I fully expect that to be, even though there is at least one primary challenger that I'm aware of on the Democratic side. So as always, this is going to be another election season to watch, and we'll continue to do that as much as possible from the local perspective on it here. On the first point you made on the whole severability and how that reflects on the seriousness that you take Proposition K, I will say that in most contracts that I've ever reviewed, again, not a lawyer, don't pretend to be one, I just read a lot, that severability is often included, at the very least in most housing contracts I've seen or have ended up reading myself. It's always right there at the end, severability, if any part of this is determined not to be. And I guess in those circumstances, I've always taken it as a hedge against, okay, if, say, law changes, if certain provisions are no longer allowable, or if this ends up getting challenged for whatever reason or kind of unforeseeable, I mean, it is a hedge against, okay, if any of this ends up not working, the whole thing doesn't fall apart here. And I think that's very much, in discussing that with the Proposition K proponents, the Sunrise El Paso and the El Paso Climate Charter Coalition groups, that was the way they discussed that on here. But I could see how you end the way that was talked about last Thursday, and now you apparently agree with the idea of that being a lack of seriousness. I do think that whether or not it's totally in contravention of state law, I do think that it would be, okay, if this were to be passed, I think that there would be pretty immediately becoming challenges. Like I can immediately see, not Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General Ken Paxton filing probably a couple of different things against this item, probably particularly with water usage, because that is something, I mean, heck, it may have already been passed by the House already. It's a little bit unclear. We talked about that last week, either on Thursday or Friday, frankly, about the idea that there are, the willingness of the state to reach down into the local level and change what can or cannot be allowable there it's been apparent up to this point. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again, and that would be something that, again, Paxton would be probably more willing than not to file. Again, cloudy crystal ball, couldn't be that for sure, but I would firmly suspect that would be the case. So, I mean, I think from their perspective, it comes to a hedging the bets, making sure that even if one part of it goes away, it couldn't be then argued that therefore the entire, again, not ordinance or law, but charter proposition goes away. But yeah, I guess I can see where you're coming at when it comes to that part specifically.
But Andrew, I believe that they use the severability clause purposely, knowing, you know what, we have a way out, so let's put in everything in there that might be illegal. So they used it to their advantage. They didn't use it legally. They did, or maybe they did use it legal, but they didn't use it honestly. And the people of El Paso need to understand that when this was drafted, that was on their minds. You know, let's put this in there. It may not be legal, but let's put it under the severability clause. And you're right. All contracts have a severability clause, but you have to use it in good conscience. And I don't believe that they did. I don't believe any of this agenda was done to further or improve El Pasoans' lives, the economy, nothing. It's going to destroy El Paso. It's going to render people who are living in poverty in El Paso now, they're going to be not in poverty, but they're going to be destitute. So we're going from poverty to destitution because of this agenda. So go vote. Proposition K, a no.
Well, fair enough there.
And then there are others there that you need to think about that they are worth voting for. Yes. So vote K, vote no, vote hard, take a friend.
Absolutely will agree with you on the idea of going out to vote and voting your values and taking people with you there. So do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you, Andrew. You too.
And early voting going on now. Marky Mendingo, I don't usually share my vote on this, but let's just say would certainly encourage everyone to be aware and knowledgeable about these. So let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Kind of this break, talk a little bit more about what we got going on, and of course, take more of your calls. So if you want to get on the line, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. 3 people have been arrested in connection to the officer-involved shooting on April 17th in the parking lot of Jaguars Gentlemen's Club. It appears El Paso police were driving through the parking lot of the East El Paso Strip Club looking for illegal activity when they came across a couple they questioned and ordered out of a car after they reportedly caught the smell of marijuana. From there, the driver allegedly tried to get back in the car and drive away, dragging police, and then another car allegedly drove toward officers in a threatening manner. A rookie on duty with the police department discharged his service weapon. No one was hurt. 29-year-old Damian Arce, 27-year-old Taisha Mullen, and 29-year-old Contrell James are all under arrest. And El Paso police say a woman who is seen in her booking photo smirking was arrested after she entered a home in Northeast El Paso without permission and stabbed a man. The incident happened at a home on Pikes Peak Drive near Diana and Hondo Pass on April 19th. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound is reduced to one lane because of road construction between Copia and Cotton Street. Expect delays till 4 o'clock for that road work. Stalled vehicle is blocking the exit ramp, border highway, westbound at Santa Fe. Road construction has the left lane closed on I-10 westbound after Las Muchas Drive. And police and fire still working an injury accident westbound red at Donovan Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. It looks like we'll see milder temperatures overall tonight, but still a cool start tomorrow morning as we get back down into the 50s to lower 60s. Looking ahead to your Tuesday, a little gustier for tomorrow. Partly cloudy skies, breezy to windy. We'll see west winds about 15 to 30 miles per hour, high around 86 degrees. Then we go cooler, partly cloudy for your Wednesday with highs back down around 80. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's.
I'm Ben Ferguson. And I'm Ted Cruz. Corruption in Washington. A total of 9 Biden family members got millions of dollars from communist China.
Find out about all this and more on Verdict with Ted Cruz.
Download it now wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, so we have the car payment, the rent, utilities,
and the repair bill.
What should we do?
I know. I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, we could have the money in our account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
On the next episode of the Tudor Dixon podcast, Why is Everyone So Sensitive Now? Is comedy being canceled? I'll talk about that and have some laughs with Michael Loftus. Catch the Tudor Dixon podcast with new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Tudor Dixon podcast.
Over-the-counter pain medications can be bought without a prescription and are intended to reduce fever and temporarily relieve minor aches and pains. There are two main types of over-the-counter pain medicines, acetaminophen and NSAIDs. Although both types of pain medications treat the same symptoms, they work in different ways and have different risks and benefits. That's why it's important to always read and follow the drug facts label on your medicine. If you have any questions, ask your healthcare professional or pharmacist.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of commentary coming in, and we'll talk more about it in a variety of different ways. And again, those dropping those likes and reacts that we always appreciate, including Stephen Christopher, Louis Pinato, Rick Reyes, Mark Mandingo, Bernadette Bandicol, Monica Cervantes, Richard Janasik, Ed Clore, James Holmes, Angel Reda, Ida Beza Gardner, and Robbie Flores. Helps with all those algorithmic things. And more talk about potential for disaster or emergency declarations involving May 11th to deal with the local situation. We'll see what happens there. So we've got those phone lines right now. Again, that number to call full up at the moment, but we'll squeeze in what we can before the end of the show. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Marco over in Central on the line with us right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
How's it going, Andrew?
Doing right there. What's on your mind?
Oh, man, this Prop K is pretty intense. I want people to understand that this is an extinction rebellion. I want everybody to look for that term, Extinction Rebellion.
Okay.
And it's basically a movement of eco-terrorist groups, financial groups like BlackRock, financing local groups to do initiatives and changing city charters and basically putting the cities in bankruptcy or like extremely over budgeting what their expenditures are and basically destroying the city. This isn't the first city. In fact, I told you one time, you should figure out who sponsored this. I guarantee you will see WEF fingerprints all over this, George Soros Society all over this. So those are some of the things that El Pasoans should think about. But if this charter goes through, let me tell you what El Pasoans can look forward to. If it goes through, have you ever heard of the 15-minute cities concept?
Yeah, it's been brought up a couple of times, but I've heard of it separately.
And so you would basically have a 15-minute city that's a gulag. And so at that point, you're only allowed to travel within certain area of the city. And so once that happens, they'll start to, if like, let's say we went to a strictly digital currency, then at that point, they can dictate and observe your accounts on where certain things and like where you're traveling, what food you're spending, what money you're spending your food on, the types of food that you're purchasing. And all of this would tie into the charter itself, because the charter is basically made to infringe on your personal liberties by attacking certain levels of your natural existence. So, I mean, the people don't have to take my word for it, but just remember this. It's not Republicans. It's liberals, communists, and socialists that are moving these ideas. These three ideas right now, they're huge. Okay, ready? In France, they're talking about cutting trees down because they are creating a carbon pollutant. That's in France, okay? The UN is looking to build a global consensus to ban rice because of the amount of methane that rice creates. And now you're almost at the end of, if people don't believe me on that, they're banning cattle. And they're talking about mass slaughters of cattle to try and get into line with some of these ESG and charters that are happening in Europe. Look at what happened to, what's that country that did the charters and it completely collapsed? It's one of the Asian countries. Do you remember which is like Malaysia? What was it?
There were protests. I think I know what you're talking about. There were like protests recently against, basically against, I think it was like mostly austerity measures that were put into place, right?
Yeah, and they were all based off of ESG, that it was going to change the society. And so I just want people to understand, look, I know that sometimes El Pasoans get caught up with their daily lives. And absolutely, you have children, you have stuff that you have to get done, work. But take this proposition seriously, because there are people that take this charter as gospel. And again, look up Extinction Rebellion, because that's what we're living through, people. We're living through a time and an era where there are actually people working towards your annihilation, how you live, what you eat. And please, El Paso, if you get an opportunity, open your eyes, go vote. If anything, make this matter and go vote. Because if you let it pass by your fingers, then you know what? You have no one to blame for your misery but yourself.
I mean, I would certainly agree that people need to go out and vote on this. And yeah, I'd heard of the kind of loose confederation that's been described as of Extinction Rebellion as the Wikipedia defines it, and I'll find a better source for this in the long run, UK headquartered global environmental movement, and it often is getting searched up in the same kind of ways as is, Sunrise Movement, WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, among other things here. And Stephen and Purdy had the answer that I managed to find as well. Sri Lanka was the country we were thinking about there. So there is more issues to come with this. And, well, again, I'll certainly agree with you on the idea of going out to vote and making sure that you do vote on this and take the people with you that you want to, or anyone that is willing to come along with you, because at the very least, making sure that people go out and do vote on this is certainly very important to me. So I certainly appreciate that point. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
No problem, Andrew. And please, people, go get educated on these global theories of climate change. You'll be amazed at the misinformation that you're being given. Thanks a lot, Andrew. Have a good one.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call again. Do appreciate it. I think we have time to squeeze in another caller or two here, so you do our level best. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
Okay, point number one. I don't want to traipse over old ground, but I do have to augment Raul's call about the excitement I have that they canned Sucker Crudson. The next on the block is that Sean-headed Spatty and lured ingrate and that other, all of nut jobs out there. Now, point number two. I pointed this out to you. I think it was 4 or 5 days ago. What is anybody responding to you, like the Sunrise people or those other people, proponents of Proposition K, about having the town halls, as I pointed out? Point number three. Now, I asked you this also about 3-4 days ago. Now, here in the whole Southwest border region, relative to Bedford-Stone, right?
No.
Where are all the fertile women here in the Southwest border region? What? I'm not hearing any other woman on this program other than bewildered Barbara. Where are the rest of the women? And that's my opening rant.
Okay. I mean, on the departures from cable TV, let's put it that way. I mean, there were two notable ones today, and it's I'll just say telling which ones are focused on. Yeah, you mentioned Tucker Carlson, but then also, of course, there's I mean, for different reasons, but the same day is the confluence here, that of Don Lemon as well. But and then on your last point here, I guess we haven't focused on that as much as most have been brought up by y'all, and I guess it's a closer one that I'm willing to get into when it comes to not totally local issues, but certainly statewide ones with the Supreme Court. I believe we mentioned this on Friday when the Supreme Court came out with the decision saying that they're going to basically, they're kicking the decision back down to the Circuit Court of Appeals when it comes to, mifepristone, and saying that they have to basically redo their decision. So Supreme Court action-ish, but not like a full decision on it. So certainly willing to take commentary on that, but it hasn't been one of our, I guess, primary focuses. But then when it comes to Proposition K and the back and forth, I will say that maybe not town halls, maybe not exactly the way you're doing it, and as much as I would love to lead the charge and something like that, we are not at all set up here in this enterprise, in this station, to be able to be the guiding force. If some are going on, if anything like what you're talking about, having the, come back and forth, offering snacks and refreshments, the way you put it, in order to get people out and informed about this, if anything like that is going on, someone please let me know, because I'd love to know. But I will say there have been a lot of different, this is, I mean, well, there was one, as I think mentioned earlier in the program, on ABC 7 Extra over the weekend, but also more of a lot of other in-person events going on with usually both sides, both some of the organizers of Prop K, Sunrise Movement, the Climate Policy Charter Committee people, that I didn't say that one right, but, and also then the chamber involved in it. So there is a lot of that going on out there, but I don't know if it's maybe like a preaching to the choir situation and not the kind of outreach you're specifically asking about.
Well, there's hundreds of thousands of people who listen to you, and I just don't understand why there are not more people chiming in on their thought process other than the standard callers, myself and Jerry and Andrew and Barbara and Ben. Where's all the rest of the people out there? I mean, they have a phone. Why can't they call you? What is the problem here? What are you going to do? Give them some free ice cream or something for them to call you? What is this nonsense? That's my point.
No, fair enough, and I take the point. Well, I mean, we're set up in certain ways, and I'll say this: that tenacity and stick-to-itiveness seems to be the major defining factor in the callers who get through. So that may be the defining factor of some of the ones you're mentioning. But particularly on Fridays, we do open it up and encourage people to call in on their many things, and I'm sure this will be a very important Friday, even among Fridays.
Well, something's got to be done about this, Andrew. I would love. I will give up calling you all week until I hear somebody else chiming in on what their particular points are relative to Proposition K, mifepristone, and everything else under the sun. Why is it always the same people that are calling? And I love calling you, but I will give up my time calling you and everybody else out there in Southwest Water. I want to hear somebody else. That's my point.
Well, fair enough. Well, I do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one out there regardless.
All right, take care, Andrew.
All right, and to actually tell you what, on that note, I think we got time for one more call on the line. We do have Eddie in Central with us right now. Eddie, thanks for joining us.
Good one out there regardless. All right, take care, Andrew.
Eddie, can you hear us?
All right, and to actually tell you what, on that note, I think we have time for one
Eddie,
more
turn
call.
down your radio. Eddie, are you there?
How you doing this afternoon?
Doing all right there. We got a minute or so here. Briefly, what's on your mind?
Okay, well, I just want to make some comments about some of the stuff that Raul talks about and this guy up in Mesilla Valley.
Oh, fair enough.
Got it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, we're ready to talk now?
Yeah. We got about a couple of minutes here, so briefly, if you can.
Okay, well, I just gotta tell ya that this only nut jobs on this show are this guy Raul on this nut job up in Mesilla Valley. That's right. Listen, El Paso, open your eyes, okay? People in Austin think that you are stupid, okay? Read, find out what's really going on with Prop K, because I've said it before. Say no to Prop K, El Paso, or you're going to pay. They're using you as a guinea pig for this new climate movement, and they think you're stupid enough to vote for it. Say no, guys. That's all I got to say.
All right, well, fair enough. Well, thank you for the point in the call and your bit of patience there. You have a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and with that, I think we got enough time just to squeeze in that last break right now. So coming out of this break, tell we got coming up for you on the show. So stay tuned. Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is reduced to one lane because of road construction between Copia and Cotton Street. Expect delays till 4 o'clock for that road work. Stalled vehicle is blocking the exit ramp, border highway, westbound at Santa Fe. Road construction has the left lane closed on I-10 westbound after Las Muchas Drive. And police and fire still working an injury accident westbound red at Donovan Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Verdict with Ted Cruz Podcast.
I'm Ben Ferguson.
And I'm Ted Cruz. Corruption in Washington. A total of 9 Biden family members got millions of dollars from communist China.
Find out about all this and more on Verdict with Ted Cruz.
Download it now wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, let's force the city to buy the electric company for $8 billion.
It costs 8 times more than El Paso's budget.
Yeah.
Property taxes would skyrocket. That's an awful idea.
That's Prop K. And that's not all. Prop K shuts off water at some gas stations.
That's crazy. No bathrooms or water to stop a fire?
Small price to pay to stop pollution.
But the Environmental Protection Agency said most of El Paso's pollution comes from international sources, not us.
Let's pass it anyway.
Even if it means raising everyone's electric bills and property taxes and cutting police and firefighters?
Now you get it.
This is the worst idea ever. Who wrote this?
My neighbors did.
How can you call yourself an El Pasoan?
I don't. I'm from Austin.
Austin wrote it. Only El Paso can stop it. On May 6th, vote no on Prop K, the worst idea in El Paso history. Political ad paid for by El Pasoans for Prosperity PAC.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Super out of time here for this show. So we are going to be focusing a lot more on the election. As of tomorrow, we'll be starting to be able to get into some of the results. Well, not results, but turnouts, and see whether to celebrate or just cry quietly on the inside, as I far too often end up doing when it comes to voter turnout. But maybe I'll be optimistic. We'll see. I'm not going to make any commitments till we get through tomorrow, at least. So some of the stuff we got coming up for you, including more talk about issues going on here in the borderland. We got that challenge grant match going on with the El Pasoans fighting on your food bank in its last week. We got more on that coming up for you, as well as some local events. It's not all doom and gloom or even just super serial, but also fun things. So we'll have to leave it there for today. Super out of time for this show. So I do want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in this program. We'll do it again tomorrow, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So until then, until next time, want you all to stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is reduced to one lane because of road construction between Copia and Cotton Street. Expect delays till 4 o'clock for that road work. Stalled vehicle is blocking the exit ramp, border highway, westbound at Santa Fe. Road construction has the left lane closed on I-10 westbound after Las Muchas Drive. And police and fire still working an injury accident westbound red at Donovan Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood? Or an earthquake is destroying buildings? When a tornado is tearing through town? Or a hurricane strikes? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your